Hello and welcome to today's episode of FMX Spotlight. My name is Lilian Klages. I am a senior lecturer and head of study at Animationsinstitut Baden-Württemberg, and I will be your host today. For the past 25 years, FMX has been all about the exchange of experiences and knowledge. To keep this exchange alive within the community, while the pandemic keeps impacting our lives and work, we offer you spotlights into the latest in visual effects, animation, immersive and interactive media, production and technology. And 4 weeks from now, FMX 2021 will open with its first ever online edition, and today's show is actually our last FMX Spotlight before this event. Some technical information. We have muted all of you so that there's no background noise, but as it is an interactive show, please use the room chat and post your comments and your notes and your questions, and we will make sure that we answer most of them or all of them at the end of the show in the Q&A session. But today's FMX Spotlight show centers on Kim Adams. Kim is co-founder and COO of Adventure Lab. And Adventure Lab creates virtual reality adventures like Dr. CRUMB'S School for Disobedient Pets, in which live hosts shape and guide cooperative play adventures for players while streaming the gameplay to their audiences. Kim is a passionate storyteller. And prior to Adventure Lab, Kim led a creative team at Facebook, creating a new platform for augmented reality storytelling for Facebook's Portal video device. She was also head of production at Emmy Award-winning Oculus Story Studio and produced VR experiences at Google Spotlight Stories. And she gained her first animation experience at Pixar, where she played a major role in creating Pixar Canada, and prior to this, had a career in editing. Kim has a big passion for working with genius artists and engineers to create things that have never been done before. Specializing in leadership and team development on creative innovation teams, she has deep experiences in the entertainment, software, and hardware industries. Kim is also a member of the Academy of Motion Pictures Arts and Sciences, the Television Academy, the Producers Guild of America, and Women in Animation. Kim has spoken across the globe at conferences and universities on the topics of virtual reality and diversity. And today, Kim will tell us about the power of storytelling, technology, and innovation to bring people together. It's a big honor for me to introduce Kim Adams.
Hello. Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for having me. Hi, Lillian. I'm excited to chat with you today and to dive in a little bit. Let me share my screen and we can get going. There we go. Okay, are you seeing that? Yes? Okay, great. All right. So thanks so much for having me today. I'm excited to dive into some questions. And as Lillian said, I'm the co-founder and COO of a company called Adventure Lab. We're building a platform for a new kind of entertainment. So social interactive experiences that are virtual and also live hosted. Our mission is to connect people across distance through play. But first I want to back up some years and talk about sort of the journey from traditional storytelling to where I am now, and some key takeaways from each stop along the way. So like any good story, it's definitely not been a straight path. It's more like a 30-year roller coaster ride down Lombard Street in San Francisco. And as every story is grounded in a theme and has key turning points based on decisions the characters make, every good product also has to be grounded in foundational pillars, have key milestones and moments where you choose to pivot or expand. So discovering what these things are for me and being rooted in them has definitely served as my compass. So my first theme or my first love is storytelling. My grandfather, my Opa, who is actually originally from Bielefeld, Germany, used to recite poetry and Shakespeare at the drop of a hat. My family are all amazing storytellers. Even now they own theaters and they direct plays, they act in plays. And growing up, we connected over hours spent storytelling, telling and retelling family stories. And I grew up wanting to bring stories to life. I went to film school in San Francisco, and I was lucky enough to get an internship at Industrial Light and Magic and then get hired on after graduation as a production assistant. Actually, first as an intern and then as a production assistant. ILM was magical at that time, which was, I'm really dating myself, but 1990 or so, most of the visual effects were all done practically. So there was this amazing model stage and creature shops and all these huge stages, mostly with huge motion control setups and miniatures bustling with activity. And on my, I don't know, it was probably my second week, I was walking across the lot, huge sunny day, 75 degrees out, and it started snowing. And I was looking around and it's sunny and it's snowing. And of course, it turned out they were shooting a commercial on a stage where it was a snowy day. But I just thought, if there's a world that I can work in every day where this kind of magic is possible, is normal, then this is what I want to do. So I had a front row seat to development of some amazing technology. The first partially generated main character for Terminator 2. And I was also at ILM when there was this young TD named John Knoll who created this crazy thing called Photoshop. So as an intern, I had the luxury of watching some of the best artists and technologists in the world create things that had never been done before. And I wanted more of that. So creating magic became another theme or pillar for me. So not wanting to stay in one place for too long, I moved to LA with a short list of contacts from my friends at ILM. And after a year or so of working for free on films to learn and working for money as a waitress and as a nursing unit secretary at the hospital, I started a path in film editing. So I worked my way up over the years to working on major feature films with talented directors like John Frankenheimer and Oliver Stone, and Academy Award-winning editors Françoise Bonneau and Walter Murch. And in the editing room, I had a front row seat to create a partnership between the editor and the director. And working with a talented editor was like a masterclass in storytelling, and it taught me filmmaking from the inside out. After years in the editing room, I returned to visual effects as coordinator and then producer and worked on films like Peter Weir's Master and Commander, which won an Academy Award for visual effects, as well as films City of Ember and Apocalypto. And working with talented people to create illusions, always in support of the storytelling. So curiosity sort of moved in as a theme as well, as I was learning the linear visual effects pipeline and each person's role in it. So from what happened on set to what the roto artists, matte painters, shading artists, compositors would need to do their work and pass on the shots to the hands of the next person in the pipeline. I was learning how I could best support that process. So these are a few images from Apocalypto. Going away on locations was exciting and I was learning a lot, but I didn't see how I could maintain relationships and have a family being away for so long. Apocalypto, for instance, we went 7 months over in production. So we were supposed to be there for 4 months. We were there for 11 months. So literally from the trailer in the middle of the jungle, dressed in full rain gear, after nearly stepping on a deadly coral snake, I emailed a contact at Pixar, a very, very distant contact. He didn't get back to me the first time, the second time, the third time, or the fourth time, but the fifth time I emailed him, it started this journey of pursuit. So I was fixated on getting a job at Pixar. So what I knew about them was that they were committed to incredible storytelling. They made wonderful movies, and they were located the same place my family was in Northern California. So there was this 3-year campaign consisting of a lot of persistence, many, many, many conversations with the folks there when I could get them, which finally led to an interview. And interviewing was actually a 4-month-long process that included meeting with 47 people 2 or 3 times each before I actually was hired as a producer at Pixar. So when I arrived, I was tasked with heading a new short film division that was focused on the Toy Story and the Cars characters. So I never worked in animation before. And although the pipeline was very similar to visual effects in a lot of ways, there was still a lot to learn. So I was scrambling now to learn the process. I was fortunate to be able to sit and ask questions of some of the most talented people in the world about each of their specific areas. And as opposed to feature films, which typically take about 5 years or more at Pixar, working on short films allowed a much faster sort of miniature version of moving through the entire pipeline. So over the course of 5 years, I produced 13 short films and was a development producer on a couple of longer television specials. I helped to create a new pipeline that integrated with the new studio we created in Canada. And we had overlapping production schedules. So we always had one short in pre-production, one in production, one in post, and many in development all at the same time. I also got to partner with 8 different directors in telling the stories that they wanted to tell. Everything we did was about supporting a story that would connect us to our audiences. The shorts were funny and beautiful. We were held to the same quality standards as the Pixar feature films. And we'll show you a peek here at the trailer for our Toy Story tune called Partysaurus Rex.
Can I just jump in, Kim, and ask you a couple of questions? Okay.
Absolutely.
So you that was really different stations, and that was quite a journey you made there already. But it seems like there was a red thread. And could you maybe just explain very shortly how you in the end decided to become a producer? What made you decide on taking on that role after being an editor and after having so many different roles? What is the USP of a producer for you?
So what was interesting, I really thought I was on track to become a feature film editor, and I was, blessed to be working with some really talented editors as mentors. But after a while, my personality sort of grew out of that room. It became very hard to stay in that little room for so many hours isolated when there was so much happening outside of it down the hall. And I would find myself at lunch, connecting with people and saying, oh, they're looking for an assistant sound editor on that other movie and the other building. Let me connect you with those people. And I just it became harder and harder for me to get back to my film bench and, sync film and do all that. It takes a very special craftsperson to do that. And so I sort of expanded into more of a, networking, communications, organizational type of person. And so it felt like producing was a better choice for me. And then I actually got into the producers program at UCLA, which was an amazing program. There were only 12 of us in the program, and we had incredible instructors. And then really, really knew that this is for me. So I love organizing, and I love stories, of course, and I love working with writers. UCLA really focused on the process of the iterative creative process between producer and writing partner. So that really appealed to me and dug in that direction.
Okay, great. Because I actually had a question of the producer-director role and how you see that, but I mean, you almost answered it. So I think, but can you maybe just give me one more input on the pipelines, because we are also talking about linear pipelines and we're talking about interactive pipelines today. So right now, in the process that you described, we are still at the linear pipeline development. How did you choose a pipeline that was suitable for the different projects?
Well, it was really, those pipelines for VFX and animation are very tried and true, right? I mean, Pixar has sort of a way they do things, and you just slot them into there. With the shorts, it was a little bit different in that I would have multiple projects going at once. And I was, for the first time, Pixar was using an external company, even though it was their own company. But what we chose to do was keep all of the story and layout editing process at what we call Big Pixar. And then we would send the shorts on to Pixar Canada, who became really expert at doing layout all the way through through rendering. We would pull the shorts back for rendering and finishing, and then work very iteratively with them, going to Canada very much and being in daily conversation with them. But for Pixar, that was a way to sort of take some of the tax off of the feature film crews, because I was always getting in there trying to steal people away for a couple days here, a couple days there. That way they had a whole dedicated team for that chunk of the pipeline. And then we would still derive the stories at Big Pixar where the directors were. Okay. Oh, there, I see you now. Should we move on to the next chapter? Oh, I can't hear you, but I think you're saying yes.
Let's move on.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Great. Let me share again. Thanks everybody for your patience. Okay, great. Okay. So I left Pixar after about 5 years, and I went to work at a place, really special place called ATAP, Advanced Technology and Projects Group, headed by Regina Dugan at Google. I was then brought into a team called Google Spotlight Stories to join other former Pixar folks, Jan Pinkava and Karen Dufalo. And Spotlight was making immersive short films. So starting with starting with mobile sort of 360 and then quickly evolving into full VR projects. So being at ATAP was life-changing. It was this hub of experts from all over the world. It was so secretive that sometimes you didn't know what the person sitting next to you was doing. There were experts on everything from brain function to fabric and textiles to pop-up books and of course filmmaking. There were lab rooms set up with and lots of engineers sort of quickly prototyping all over all kinds of ideas. Our short films were created within a game engine that the team had built themselves called Moxie. And this was sort of the beginning of my world turning upside down. So I had finally mastered these tried and true linear visual effects and animation pipelines, but almost none of my methodologies worked in this medium. So during this time, which was about 2014 to 2016, the technology and the tools grew, expanded, and broke all the time. So as a producer, you like to build on what you know and gain traction and momentum, but expanding into the unknown really keeps you at an exploratory pace. So on a practical level, it was really difficult to budget and schedule for. A typical contingency plan just doesn't really hold up in this landscape. So the team was doing things that literally only a handful of people on the planet knew how to do, making up names for things sort of on a daily basis. So as a producer in that space, you had to really sort of use your gut and trust your team. We did a project called Rain or Shine with Nexus Productions, which had branching storylines. So I was clearly no longer working in film, but in software. So building worlds and characters in a game engine for mobile allowed the audience to use their phones, not just as a miniature screen, but as a window into another world. And the audience could choose which character to follow, what to look at. If they looked one direction, the narrative would branch in that direction. If they then followed another character, the narrative would branch in that direction. So, and then intersecting sort of seamlessly back to the storyline at some point, pulling you through the story while still giving you the freedom of choice. So this is sort of what a script looks like, a story-driven script looks like when you're working in three-dimensional space and your audience has free will. So the gold path representing sort of a nuanced, authored, emotional story, like a traditional short film, but you're surrounded by all these other story events, all these other choices that the viewer might make at any given moment, which entertain you and then subtly track you back into the main thread. Things like editing change in this new world of interactive choices, right? So the results, this results in variable running times, which blew my mind, especially being from editing and having very finite frames. The fact that the running time could actually be variable depending on how long the viewer looked at different things just was amazing to me. It was so foreign to everything that I had learned before. So giving the viewer such freedom brought up so many interesting questions. So how does one experience a story when they can follow one character or the other? What happens if that character is aware of them watching? How can you tell a narrative story when the audience is allowed to look anywhere in this endless canvas instead of a typical screen? How do you hold their attention? What if they miss something that you feel is key to them? What are the tools you have to get them to look where you want? What happens if the audience has agency in the story world? So they're able to make choices that potentially affect the outcome of the story, such that it might be a different experience each time you do it? How would filmmakers cope with the lack of control, as well as the additional tools that they now had at their disposal? So the Spotlight team and Karen Dufalo pulled in some incredible directors that came from traditional filmmaking backgrounds and asked them, what would you do? What would you do with this technology? So we had Glenn Keane, Patrick Osborne, Doug Sweetland, Patrick Lynn, and we produced this project called Special Delivery, directed by Tim Ruffle with a team from Aardman Animation, which was a joy. And we'll get you a little peek at that trailer. Okay, so it was my first time really working with software engineers, and at first I did not know what to do with them. They were so quiet, and the game engine language that they spoke was, I felt like, I don't know if you all are familiar with Charlie Brown, but when Charlie Brown's teacher speaks, there's sort of this wah, wah, wah. I had no idea what was going on when I first got there. Luckily, they were very kind people, and they put up with all of the many questions that I asked. And their preferred way to communicate was different, right? They had Slack, they had chat, different tools. Their whole culture was different. So instead of feeling this impending finality of a film release date, which I had sort of grown up with, where every pixel had to be perfect, as you had one chance to get it right, they lived in a world where they launched a project and then they could actually update it later, right? So they didn't have the same urgency. But soon I really came to realize that most engineers are very similar to artists, and that their output is just different. So instead of brush strokes, they're crafting zeros and ones. And as a producer, it was my job to give them as much space for their process and listen to their needs as I would a traditional artist. And they were happiest when they were in a dialogue with the creative team, the traditionally creative team. So I joined the team at a tail end of a project called Duet, which was directed by legendary Disney animator Glenn Keane. And the engineers told me that their favorite experience at Spotlight was when Glenn sat in the middle of the room, drawing and drawing and drawing, and they would code and code around him, inspired by what he was creating. And then he would turn to them, all the time and say, well, what if the character wanted to do this thing? Would that be possible? And they would stop and say, well, no, but would this be helpful? Or, it was this constant ongoing dialogue where they were inspiring each other to achieve new and different things, constantly testing and iterating. Regina Dugan called this sort of the Italian dinner party, where you fought to get a word in as everyone was excited to bring their ideas to the table. There were more questions than answers. So this became another pillar for me. Still one it's probably the strongest, which is facilitating ongoing conversations between brilliant artists and genius technologists to create things that have never been done before, connecting people through technology, to a story and a world. Here's a look at Glenn and the technical project lead, Rashid El-Gorab, that shows sort of a glimpse of this dialogue and particular challenge of this project of incorporating Glenn's 10,000 hand-drawn animations. I think it really captures the love affair that occurred between art and technology at Spotlight. And we can play this Glenn King clip. Alrighty. So I was now, solidly in love with immersive experiences. And I wasn't the only one. Sort of in real life at locations around the world, live immersive theater experiences like Sleep No More by Punch Drunk and Then She Fell by Third Rail Projects in New York were in full swing, and escape rooms were growing as well. So I went then to work at Oculus Oculus Story Studio, an award-winning narrative VR studio. They were being called sort of the Pixar virtual reality. And two of the founders were actually from Pixar as well. The Story Studio was the best kind of VR team. So they were curious, tenacious, and diversified between game and software engineers, artists, and filmmakers. The perfect guest list for an Italian dinner party. I jumped in feet first as head of production and executive producer on a project called Wolves in the Walls, which had a fully interactive AI main character, this little girl you see here named Lucy. Sometimes I would play checkers with Lucy in VR at lunchtime, and sometimes she would win. I'm not proud of that. I helped develop a pipeline that shared sort of the best of the narrative film world, but also borrowed from the small, lean methodology or smart lean methodologies of game production, and even interactive theater. We pulled in a lot from that world as well, sort of going round and round and round to find the right balance. At Story Studio, I really learned the importance of fast prototyping too. So quickly learn what worked and what didn't, and abandon that thing, or dig into a path further and move on quickly. After Story Studio closed, I was asked to go to an innovation team at Facebook called Building 8, which was being led by my former ATAB mentor and boss, Regina Dugan. So I started a team there to create a new way of telling stories in AR for their Facebook remote calling device called Portal. I pulled in a couple of fantastic former Pixar directors who wrote 6 interactive stories for the launch. And the focus of our team at Facebook was really about people. It was how people build relationships through shared experiences, interactive experiences, and how technology could really facilitate that. And even though we were limited to a 2D screen, our lead director, Mark Walsh, defined some core pillars of interaction to keep interaction engaging and delightful. So at this point, interactive location-based experiences where you could go in and put on VR headsets were really rapidly growing as well. So we're seeing companies like The Void, Dreamscape, and Sandbox really expand. I think we're gonna chat with Lillian a bit now.
I'm having a problem asking all these questions because you're answering them already. So it's a bit. But I actually have one question, and it's maybe a short one. Can you because interactive pipelines? Can you share some do's and don'ts, just very quick? Because it is for a lot of producers, at least producers like us, the more linear producers, it's still a miracle. What are the do's and don'ts?
There are no rules. That's the first thing. There's really no tried and true pipeline yet for these things. It changes depending on the project, depending on the team, depending on the goals of the team. So if you're at a larger company where they have resources to have sort of an R&D department, there's a lot more room for exploration versus being on a small sort of scrappy team where you were trying to hit a deadline. It's a very different process. But I would just say sort of the pipeline evolves as you're moving through it. What I did at Google Spotlight was for myself at first, I was sort of like, wow, I'm seeing these similarities between projects, but it's all a little bit different. And I took the regular traditional animation pipeline, I put it on a timeline, and then I put what we were doing underneath it. Also, so I could talk through with other partners like Aardman Animation, who are coming from the traditional world, and say, okay, here's what you're used to seeing, and kind of here's what we're doing, just to give them a heads up. Like, for instance, there was something that we did called a vertical slice, which is borrowing from games, where you would your goal is to see what you want to see at the end in the beginning. So everyone sort of has that to point to and look at. There are also different parts of the pipeline that are all about testing and proof of concept. So before you greenlight this idea, what do you need to prove will work first? We need to prove that we can do X, Y, and Z. So we'll do a test for that, or we'll do a proof of concept of that. We'll do this vertical slice so everyone knows what you're working toward. I think the key to the whole thing is approaching it with curiosity and being able to find the balance of when to allow for that exploration and when to drive forward. So of course, we always, as producers especially, we have a timeline that we need to look to, we need to point at. But for instance, when we were expanding our platform from VR to all hardware devices, I had a 7-week, I think 6-week timeline for a prototype. And of course that expanded to 7. But our overall goal was to have something delightful at the end of it. And we didn't hit delightful until week 10. And then we polished for a week after that. So it was 11 weeks. But if I had cut it off and just said, oh no, we're at the end of the line, we wouldn't have ended up with anything. So it's about sort of flexibility, approaching it as a learner with curiosity.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on.
Let's move on, okay. Alrighty. So back to Adventure Lab. So we're building a platform for this new kind of entertainment, social interactive experiences that are virtual and live hosted. Our mission is to connect people across distance through play. And although my co-founder Max and I have both worked on some pretty groundbreaking stuff, we didn't see anything a couple of years ago that utilized cutting edge tech, spoke to the growing social entertainment trends that we're seeing that I'll talk about, had the magic of a live performer, and something that we'd all been searching for in XR for a while, which was a business model that was actually scalable. So we set out in January of 2019 to create something like that. So first of all, since narrative VR is beautiful, but we wanted to give something to people to do together, right? To connect them. People connect over doing shared activities together. So we knew we wanted to give them, and they have their hands now, right? They have their hands in VR to do things with. So we wanted to give them something cooperative to do. When you give someone agency in the world, letting them use their hands, move around in space, and cast them in a role, it gets really exciting. And then putting them in there with their friends and tasking them to all work together on something cooperatively sort of takes it to the next level. And this is all facilitated by a live performer. So here's a few trends that led us to believe we're onto something here. So first, obviously, hanging out digitally is the new norm. We're doing it right now. Even before the pandemic, millennials and Gen Z were hanging out on platforms like Fortnite, Minecraft, and Roblox. But now we've all learned how to live, work, and play on these different platforms. There's a huge opportunity to create connection through social play and magical technology. So also, next-gen audiences want to interact with their content and have it interact back with them. They want to feel like it's different every time and very responsive. And this is why we're seeing things like Twitch, Clubhouse, and Discord take off, because that feeling of intimacy and interactivity. They're looking for experiences that are happening right now, unique to them, and will never happen again the same way. And then lastly, there's this new kind of performer emerging, and we're creating a platform for them as well. So from Twitch streamers to TikTok stars, they're looking for content that engages their audience and facilitates genuine connection. So we believe the next great media platform is going to marry social games and storytelling. So social games are all about connecting us to one another, whereas storytelling is all about connecting us to an experience through character and world building. Our secret ingredient is enabling a live performer to help marry these two things and bring live interactive social experiences to life. Here is how it works, and we'll go to the video.
Great to see you. It's been a while.
What's up, guys?
Hi, y'all.
Welcome to the VIA.
Welcome to the VIA.
Virtual Intelligence Agency. Are we ready?
Okay, gather around.
Welcome, recruits, to the VIA.
I'm Chief. I'll be your commander for today's mission.
Well, hello there. What a cute and sorry batch of furballs you are.
I'm gonna be the kitty avatar, and Andy already picked the bunny avatar. I'll see you in the game.
Are you ready to get started?
Yeah.
Agents, you have support at Mission Control.
Say hello, Shadow Agents.
Hello, Agent! Mission Control here.
Okay, Shadows, what are we looking for?
Oh, find the bird symbols.
Got it.
No! Hello? I need a little help in here.
We have to hack the door open.
Got it. M-E-O-W.
Oh,
Thanks, guys.
nice work, Shadow.
Great teamwork, guys.
That was a blast. I had so much fun, you guys.
We have to do this again. Can everybody do Friday?
Yeah.
Okay, next Friday.
Perfect.
Perfect. It was great to see you guys.
Yeah, great to see you. Bye, everyone.
And that's how we do it. Bring people together. Until next time.
Okay. So that is Adventure Lab. We're creating this double-sided marketplace for both performers and guests. So we give the performers actually the tools to schedule their own show times. They schedule times that work for them. They post those times to our website. Those get booked online. They get a confirmation that it was booked, and then they spin up a showtime from wherever they are in the world, from inside their Quest headset. And they greet their guests at showtime. On the guest side, guests connect from any hardware device with a camera, a laptop, PC, tablet, or VR headset, and they're greeted by the live performer who takes them through this 40 to 60-minute interactive experience, which is sort of a mix of social gaming and immersive performance. The performer can puppet multiple characters throughout the experience, and they can control different aspects of the environment and the gameplay, and really personalize each adventure to each group so it feels really unique. And they can also stream the experience out to a much larger watching audience. So our first experience we launched was actually a VR-only experience called Dr. Crumb's School for Disobedient Pets. We launched it in May of last year, and we've had a pretty great response so far. We sold out the first 8 weeks. We hired more performers to keep up. We've now hosted nearly 1,000 people across 16 countries. We've gotten consistent 5-star reviews, won a bunch of awards, and received really great attention from the press. We were just in a couple articles last month. We've created something that people really love. So 96% of people are saying they really want to come back again for the next one. And I have to say that it's really one of the most gratifying experiences in my life, is listening to friends and family connect through playing these experiences during the pandemic. You can just feel the joy and the delight that they have, and whether they're across the world, literally across the world from each other, or whether they're 2 miles away, but they haven't been able to be in the same room together. So creating that connection between people in the virtual world has been truly wonderful. So creating experiences with escape room mechanics, which is sort of what our first VR experience is, really allowed us to build a lot of platform primitives that we'll use for different kinds of adventures. Where we're going next is about building fun adventures that are really easy to customize and have a format that's a lot more sort of watchable and repeatable than a traditional escape room. So we're building this robust entertainment platform for users to revisit again and again, try out new adventures with different performers, bring new friends and colleagues, and we're going to expand into, you'll see potentially murder mysteries on our platform, game shows. There's a really cool haunted house experience we're working on where the performer actually embodies the different ghosts and live crafts the scares as you're moving through the experience. We'll have elimination challenges and more. We're just getting started. I'd love to hear some of your questions.
I think because we have a limited time space, maybe we should move on and then have Eddie come in quite soon when you're finished, and he has a couple of questions prepared, and then let the audience in a little later. I think we have about 16 minutes left. So yeah, let's continue.
Sounds good. Oh, well, I'm done though, if you're done.
No? Okay, so then we are on to the next chapter, so to speak. And I welcome Eddie Schäfer. He studies interactive media at the Animationsinstitut in Baden-Württemberg and is currently developing the interactive part for his transmedia diploma project, Cyber City Love Story. But I think, Eddie, you can explain it better, and you also prepared a lot of questions. I'm just going to step back and hand over to you.
Hi, and thanks for your kind words.
Yeah. Hi, Eddie.
Hi, you can hear me, so nice. I'm not speaking into a void.
No, I can hear you.
First of all, thank you for a very, very beautiful presentation. It was very amazing. I think I speak for a lot of students who also already mentioned it in the chat. And thank you again for inviting me to actually try out the Dr. Crumb School for Disobedient Pets with my friends, some chosen ones. So we had the luck to have like 6 VR headsets lying around. So we had the full experience all over the place. Clara from Strasbourg, a friend of mine, like a few kilometers away, and some in the same flat. But it was very cool, and everyone had such a great feedback for that idea. So I want to ask a few specific questions, like one of which you already answered, but I wanted to say that you could really see that you don't want to exclude anyone from enjoying this experience, because you obviously tended to use teleportation as the go-to method to move around as a character in the world, so you don't have to cope with motion sickness, I guess.
Exactly.
But the most beautiful thing about this workaround was that you could teleport in the world, but you could see the other players not just disappear and appear again, but they really moved around. So they were like bunny hopping through the world. Can you tell a little bit about the iterations of this technical process?
Yeah, I wish I was more technical. I have to admit, I cheated, and I talked to our engineers about this. And this was this incredible senior engineer we were really lucky to have at the beginning of our process, named Mitch Thompson. And Mitch sort of had this clever combination of animations with, I'm going to cheat and look at the engineer's note, inverse kinematics, that makes it really look like the animals are scurrying around. Like you can see, you're watching your friends and their feet are like sliding to a stop, you know, which just makes it really fun and gives the animals a lot more personality. And you're exactly right about teleportation, right? We really did that. Teleportation-based movement system really does avoid a lot of that queasy motion sickness that people sometimes get. And we also use this dynamic bone system. I don't know if you noticed, that animates the ears of the animals as well, which just makes them super cute and fun. And I don't know if you guys spend a lot of time looking in the mirror, but we make sure to put a mirror in the room because it's so much fun to move around and see yourself as these cute little animals, and people love to spend a lot of time dancing and things in front of the mirror because of that really cute animation that we give them.
Yeah. I hope that our guide was not too overwhelmed with us, because we were 6 VR developers trying to break the game, you know. And
as they do. We're used to that. It's okay. They love actually being challenged with people doing different things because it makes them improv in different ways. So they really love it when people bring different things into the space.
Yes. Okay. And what I also wanted to say that what the cool experience was that you can really see that you planned it for VR from the first day one, because one of the main mistakes some developers do, like they choose something which like was successful on the PlayStation or the computer, and they try to force it inside a new medium like VR, and this doesn't work. But in Dr. Crumb's School, you could really see that it's like day one for VR, and it's very detailed there. So what was your like most valuable lesson from this project?
Oh gosh, I wouldn't even be able to say which one. I would say that we, you know, it's easy to get lost, and when you don't have a lot of runway, when you are a small team, you really have to be very clear about what are our pillars, what are we trying to achieve here, so that you have that as a compass, because you can easily pull a thread and go down something that's really cool, but it might not contribute to your overall. For instance, the prototype I was talking about before, the goal was to be delightful, and the goal was to also prove out a couple technical things. But the main thing about that was to prove that it's delightful interacting with a live person from a browser, from a 2D experience. I know it's never going to be as immersive as a VR experience, but is it fun to have a live person addressing you and then also the people in VR? So we were proving that, and we were proving that it could be delightful enough for people to want to buy a ticket to it. So it's really about carving out your pillars. Design-wise for us, it was about, you know, there's a lot underneath delightful. It sounds like a cute little thing to aim for, but underneath delightful means that it's there's an ease of use people are not sitting there confused by the mechanics. The mechanics need to be intuitive and easy for them to get right away, because you can't count on people having VR experience, right? You have to really focus on those intuitive, simple mechanics. And luckily, my co-founder, Max, is a technical genius, and he's really incredible at designing mechanics that are very easy to get. You don't want people to feel like they're doing something wrong, or they're not going to have a fun time. So a lot of that is also about the onboarding experience, delight. They need to feel safe in the space. They need to come in and feel welcome. So even though it's an evil doctor that's greeting them, he's sort of a comical, or she's sort of a comical evil genius and welcoming you. And it's all about sort of like when you walk into Disneyland, whether you're wearing the Mickey Mouse ears or not, you're given license to play. You know, you're given, you know, we need to teach them first that this performer is not an AI, which a lot of people assume that the performer is when they walk in. So we have to train them like, no, it's about a dialogue. So I don't know if they asked you to make an evil laugh at one point yourself, but that's all part of the onboarding process to get you talking to the performer and to each other and feeling safe in this space. And we've had a lot of comments from people like, I've never felt so safe in VR before with other people. So to us, that's a huge win. And then the other pillar for us is really taking advantage of this fact that we have this live performer in the space, which is very unique. It's sort of this key differentiator that we have, and also finding the balance between, you know, too much performance, because we were seeing when it was too scripted and the performer was talking too much, the polite reaction, as we've been trained as audience members, is to sit back and to watch the performance and not interrupt, which would kill our whole experience, because it's all about this dynamic back and forth. So you feel really active throughout it. So it really also is finding a balance of how much is scripted so that you know where you are, you know who you are in this space, what's expected of you. And you have moments of play and improv with the performer, and then you can be with your friends and you can do your thing. I hope that answered your question.
One of my follow-up question would be like, if you ever considered to have not a human guy, but like an AI doing that, but it also answer this question totally. So it was never an option to not have a guy.
It came up early on. It came up as, would we ever do that? We thought maybe at one point, after doing Dr. Crum, 1,000 times, we would know what people were responding to, so much so that we could maybe pre-record responses, maybe even with celebrities. But the more we do it for people, the number one thing that people love about the experience is the live performer. 99% of the time. There is something unique and special when they call back to something silly that you said, when these performers can tell pretty much right away who's the troublemaker, who's the very intense puzzler, solver. And when they see that and recognize you, people just really want to be seen and heard, right? So when you get acknowledged at the end, you're the MVP, you really did this, I saw you do that, people just light up. And that's not something that an AI can do for you. It's a very human connection that we're going for, and you just can't get that with AI, no matter how brilliant it is.
Yeah, totally agree. Then I would close up my part with a last question, and taking the bridge again to Lillian's introduction, because I'm also doing a diploma project with a VR, with a transmedia thingy. We're trying to combine a show, like a TV show, where you watch on a regular TV, but we tell a story where the main character at a point goes into VR, and at this point, we as a user, we follow the viewer and also put on our VR goggles, and then we live through the story in virtual reality and continue the storyline.
That sounds fantastic.
Thank you. Good greetings to my team, by the way. And so you've been at a lot of festivals, won a lot of awards. You have worked with the best of the best in this industry, I'd say. So what do you take with you for the future? What are your wishes? What are your hopes for this community to grow, or how to develop?
Yeah, I mean, I think with all technology, my hope is that it's used for good right? Because there's great power that comes with being technological wizards. I would like to see VR, as much as I love the narrative and the play experiences which connect people, so I'd love to see continuation of that. But I also love seeing VR used in education and medical fields and training and really continued exploration of how, even though this feels very technical, how at the core of it, it could be used to connect people together.
Beautiful. That was a good, fantastic answer to the last question. The audience asked, there's 2 questions here. The audience asked, how does one audition to be one of your performers? What do I have to do to become one of your performers?
Right now, we're not casting new performers. But we actually leave the job description online. So it's on our website, which is www.adventurelab.fun, and you can go to careers, and there's a job description there to see if it maybe is something that you feel would suit you. And then you apply online there, and you can also send me an email, and I keep all of those. And the reason we leave it up there is because you know, originally, not so much anymore, but when we first started, investors were sort of like, you know, are there really enough people out there who would like to do this? And so I'd like to be able to say, actually, yes, without any recruiting, I haven't done any recruiting. I have almost 100 performers who are waiting to audition. And that really helps us. And it also creates for us a really great resource. So when I actually won't need to recruit, I'm just going to go to my list of people who sent their resume and their information. And then at that point, how we've hired in the past is I usually review those with Janine Willett, who's our advisor, who's a co-founder of Third Rail Projects, very amazing immersive theater company. And she and I and Max will go through, see who feels appropriate, and then we'll ask them to do an audition where we give them script pages from Dr. Crum and have them read a couple different roles. We listen to those recordings. We really look for, above all, I look for improvisation experience. So even more than immersive theater experience is great. Traditional theatrical experience is fine. You really need a vocal range because you're puppeting characters, right? So you really need voice work is a huge thing. You need a vocal range and you need improv experience so that your instinct is to yes and. You know, someone gives you something, you don't want to say, oh, you're doing it wrong, or no, I didn't plan for that. It's sort of like, oh, you're being a very disobedient pet. That's perfect. You're my perfect minion. You know, you want performers who can be very welcoming and yes and. So that's sort of what we look for.
Okay, great. I have one more question. Do you think, that's Alex saying, do you think one day AI will be able to write different story paths for interactive storytelling?
Yeah, again, I don't want to take the human out of the process, right? So I think that absolutely there will be programs that will do that. Will they feel the same? I don't think so. AI just can't replicate the kind of human experience that we all bring when we write a story, when we create a process. So that's all the underlying, you know, Pixar movies work because the directors bring, you know, Andrew Stanton brought a story about worrying about his newborn baby to Finding Nemo. You know, an AI doesn't have that sort of life experience to bring into stories and worlds. So I think yes, and that can get us to a certain point, but I also feel like we can never take people out of the equation.
Good. One last question. Tom asked, is it available in different languages?
Not yet, but will be as we expand. And we've had performers reach out to us from different countries who would love to do that. So absolutely part of our roadmap. Luckily, we've been able to host people from different countries who've been kind enough to you know, participate in the English-speaking project, but we will definitely have more languages.
That brings us to the end. Unfortunately, it was absolutely amazing having you, and I think it was so incredibly inspiring. And we had a talk before, and we talked about how the whole experience came together in a time where it was so needed. that people actually, you know, they were sitting alone in their rooms. They couldn't share anything. They couldn't share experiences. It was really hard to have fun together. I think that you found just the perfect platform to bring people together, to have all the elements of theater combined with storytelling, combined with games. It's new, it's innovative, it's obviously a lot of fun. I wish that I get the opportunity to play it very soon.
Please come.
I will. And I think that. Thank you thank you so much for being here, for talking with us, for giving us the insight, and I hope that the audience feels the same, and I hope we meet in person soon. Hopefully next year, hopefully maybe even sooner than that. So thank you, Kim, for being part of the FMX Spotlight and sharing the insights. We will hear a lot from you, I hope, and I think so. And to everybody else, thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. Thank you for asking questions. And we won't have another FMX Spotlight in May, because then we have the FMX 2021. And it will take place online at your home, and we have a fantastic program. So go to the social media, check it out, be inspired, be curious, and yeah, stay with us. And thank you for watching, and have a nice evening. And Kim, a great day. It was very early. I hope you had a second and third coffee. And
thank you so much. I really appreciate you. Thank you for having me, and thank you for the whole FMX team for all of your amazing organization and pulling this all together. It's been a pleasure, and I wish everyone the best. They can reach out to me at Kim at adventurelab.fun. I'm happy to answer any additional questions.
Fantastic. Thank you, Kim. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.